Hello and welcome back to Talk is Jeep. I am your host, Art Aldrich, with my co-host, Tom Chartrand.
Glad to be here.
We are in Killington, Vermont at the 14th annual Killington Jeep Jamboree USA. And Tom, this is your first experience behind the wheel of your own Jeep.
Right. I mean, of all the years I've owned a Jeep, it's always been on a beach and, cruising over the sand. And
Life's a beach,
Life is a beach. And, having done the Jeep Jamboree with you as a co-pilot and navigator last year in Tennessee, we got the fever, we got a Jeep again. And so this was the time to get my 03 TJ on the trail.
So when we spoke last night, you were a little nervous. You weren't sure what to expect. I'd given you all of my wisdom about what to expect. I'm not sure if you processed it or not, but now 4 hours after the ride ended, what are your thoughts? What's going through your head? Are you out worrying about your Jeep, in the driveway?
Well, at the moment, no, because it drove home just fine. After a couple of thunderous thuds that really made us scared. But, as of last night and this morning, and even all the way up until about lunchtime today, which was a pretty easy ride, I was like, I can handle anything.
So you had some confidence. You had some beer muscles.
I had some muscles. Yeah. I mean, I was very nervous going in. I was, this lift had been put on by the guy that I bought it from in South Carolina. The Jeep was clean. Everything was good, but I was nervous. I had been on the trail with you and it was, all right, can it hold up? Is this Jeep okay? It's 18 years old. Can it do it? And, in the first 4 or 5 hours of the day, it seemed pretty easy.
Now, let me step back for a moment and let's go back to your first Jeep. I can speak about my first Jeep. I really never off-roaded it. I really never modified it to the level that I've modified my current Jeep. I mean, had you ever been off-road in your previous Jeep?
No, not in the Jeep Jamboree sense. So any modifications I did to mine were all aesthetic. It was all, let's change the color of the lights. Let's put on a cargo net. Let's do all, these different things. So it would look fun, look cool. And we did a lot of beach jeeping. We would go on Sandy Neck in Barnstable on Cape Cod, Nauset Beach, the Outer Beach. And, the worst thing I ever had was, maybe getting in 4 inches of sand and having to, put a board under the wheel and get out. So that was the extent of my off-roading,
So you show up at Killington, which is a great ski mountain, but in the summer, it's a little different. And you show up, the mountain is a little intimidating. It's very tall.
Yeah.
There's clouds at the top. I mean, did you think oh my God, I'm going to be driving up this mountain?
Right, absolutely. You see the altitude, you see everybody, and also you see all the other Jeeps. People have these things tricked out with 35-inch tires, 37-inch tires, all these crazy mods on them. And I'm like, is my, 03 TJ going to be able to take the trail? And having seen some of the stuff we drove over in your JL, you had 35-inch tires, you had a nice lift kit, and you had done Killington with a stock JL, so you kind of learned what you wanted to do. I'm like, is this going to make it? Am I going to make it with 33-inch tires?
That's true, because I hadn't really looked at it from that perspective before. I bought my Jeep new. I was the first owner. I spec'd the lift kit. I mean, I had full control over it.
Right.
There's a certain confidence in that. You basically bought the Jeep, as is. It was already done for you. You really had no say in it except for maybe the tire size.
Right.
So, and it's, it's a Jeep that's, 18 years old?
18 years old. It's a Southern Jeep. It was from South Carolina. And, we did a lot of looking. We looked around. We wanted something that was a TJ, so something that was 2006 or older, to herald back to what I had. I had an 01X before that. And, we thought we found the right one. We had followed this guy on Facebook who really was, whether it was a hobbyist or whatever, he was into fixing up old Jeeps with, great lift kits and, not necessarily for off-roading, but just for making them look cool and all this. And we're like, all right, is it going to do the job? Is it going to be able to, ride the trail? Is it going to do it? And, I brought it to my guy at home that looked it over and said, yeah, this is a great kit. Everything looks good. Everything should be up to what you want to do. So, I felt pretty good about arriving here until I got here and saw everybody's Jeep and saw the mountain and really got a feel for what was out there.
Now, you have to understand, too, because my first trip 2 years ago in 2019, I was at the back of this line. All these people had been here before, and my Jeep was literally the littlest, tiniest, most stock Jeep in the bunch. It was, I think, one of the only JLs at the time because the JLs were still only a year old.
Right. And it wasn't a Rubicon.
It was not a Rubicon.
Right. So that's a big difference from some of the ones we saw here today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay. So you get on the trails, and I will say this, not to undermine the Jeep Jamboree or whatever, but the trails we rode this morning were pretty much driving in a dirt parking lot.
I will say that was comforting.
But then the afternoon got a little more challenging. And I remember telling you this, that your Jeep will make noises and things will smash and you will feel very uneasy about it. And I think that proved itself out in the afternoon.
It did, especially having my wife sit next to me who, said, we're getting a beach Jeep and, this is not, you're not going to beat on this thing. And, I got to say, I was amazed at how much she enjoyed it and the smiles and all that. But we're going through all this and I'm seeing all these Jeeps in front of me, lifted more, modified more, rocking back and forth, and I was nervous as hell. And I just kept going back to, what you had said, just stay the line, do the line. And I had done that in my, even the beach days, knowing where to ride over all the mud things and the overflow and the outwash and the backwash of high tides and everything. So I had a thought about it, but, following the line and it made me more confident. And every time something bad didn't happen, I felt better about it. So once it finally did, and I went over a huge rock, and Melissa, you were, filming the whole thing, and we heard this thunderous thud. I thought it was all over. I thought we were done. We were going to have to get towed out of there. And then to have the realization that, no, it's fine. That gave me a ton of confidence.
Now, I didn't want to tell you this, but there's a pile of black oil under your Jeep in the driveway, and you might want to have it looked at before tomorrow.
Very good. Very good. Well, I'm going to go for a massage if that's the case.
But it's true, all the things that you say, because there are lots of people at the Jeep Jamboree, and I'm not one of them, and I'm not disparaging them, but they bring their Jeeps in on a trailer behind an expensive tow rig, and they can drive it and don't have any fear of getting home. I drove I drove my Jeep here. I need to drive it home or I'm not getting home.
Right.
And so I am driving it on the trail with a little bit of not trepidation but care.
Right.
Like, I don't want to break it. I'm trying to pick lines and treat it in a way that I will be able to drive it home. And
right.
And what I did notice today, and I don't know if you noticed this or not because you were behind me, but I noticed in front of me there were a couple of kind of stock Rubicon Jeeps with, inexperienced drivers.
Yeah.
And the lines that they were taking, they were trying very hard to avoid the obstacles, meaning big rocks and things like that. And they were putting their Jeeps in positions that were either very off camber or not really the right line. Sometimes the right line is to put your tire over the biggest rock and just go over it.
Right, because sometimes if you try to avoid it or go around it, you're going to do body damage.
Or you're straddling. You wind up straddling a big rock and you smash something underneath that doesn't have protection. So I always try to emphasize you want to put the tires on the big obstacles.
Right. It was helpful because I noticed throughout the day, because there was one behind us that was another stock Rubicon that they had just bought in November of 2020, and you had those two in front of you. So it really was. I heard a lot of smashing and banging and all that. So, you were able to place your line based on what they did or chose to do,
Well, I will say
wrong way.
this. I will say this. One of the upgrades I did this year was putting in a front camera above the license plate.
Right.
And I'm using this as a rock trail camera to see what's in front of me. Because sometimes when the hood is up high, you're climbing over an obstacle before you drop down. You can't see what's in front of you. So having that was helpful. It did help me try and pick a better line for the tires to be on. But I did try to give you a line. I know you didn't follow it every time because I think you were still a little cautious.
Right. And you were a little daring, I saw that sometimes. And I saw another line that I felt better about, but
and that's fine if you think that, you can manage it. And the only way you will get the experience is to learn.
Right.
And you go down the line and it might be terrible and you might get, as I did, high center or whatever. But the only way you learn is to really experience that for yourself. So you finished the day. What are your thoughts about your Jeep?
I was amazed at how an 18-year-old Jeep with a nice lift kit and a clean body could really get through the day. It really handled it well. I was so pleased at from the beginning of the day to midway through the decision making, and again watching your lines, judging my own based on what my car could do. I was really pleased. It was a lot of fun. I can't wait for tomorrow. And going, we were placed with some challenges that were probably 200%, tougher than what we saw at lunchtime. At the end, those rocks, some of those challenges, and seeing what some people were doing with their Rubicons that are supposed to be able to do everything that were stock. We were gliding right over. You would set yours up, you've got a little bit bigger wheels, and I've got the 33s and a 4-inch lift, and it was flying over it, and I was amazed.
I did notice that you had a little more swagger in your step. You had a little more confidence in your driving decisions, and that does. I mean, that comes just from doing it, but you'll have some lows. I mean, it will happen. You'll.
I hope not.
No, you will. Like, don't think you won't. Like,
right.
you will get it stuck. You may need to be towed. You may need to be winched. You may just, high center it like a turtle, and you'll have to be the guy that got stuck. But those are learning experiences. Yeah. That's sometimes the best way to learn. I mean, I like to watch what people do in front of me and then try to either improve on that or at least follow it.
Right.
But all of it comes from experience. So I did see you gain some of that experience today. I think tomorrow, if it's the way that I remember it from 2 years ago, I think you will find it more challenging.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, boy.
What do you think? Now, I mean, and this may be a question for tomorrow night when we record part 3.
Yeah.
But have you sensed anything in your vehicle that you are like, okay, I see why I need to improve X on my Jeep?
Well, maybe the sound system, because I wasn't able to,
That's not a valid answer. That is not a valid answer.
My fish music was not, all the way there. So, at the moment, no. I mean, I think, I feel boldly confident in what I don't know. Today went well. It doesn't seem like there was any lasting damage. So, hearing everything, I did, people with their lockers and this and that. We weren't really faced with anything that was super challenging. It was a light trail. So, I don't know. I know, we had done some of those Tennessee trails, and I watched what you went over, and I didn't feel like we had any serious challenges.
We weren't really challenged today, and I think tomorrow will be. I'm hoping it'll be a different story. I think that it's funny, something you said that I'm thinking about right now.
Yeah.
About the Rubicons in the group, and it's funny when you don't have a Rubicon. I don't have a Rubicon. I have a Sport S, and you've got a TJ non-Rubicon Jeep. But the people who buy Rubicons, it's like they have a chip on their shoulder. And I'm not saying that they all have attitudes, but, you see someone who's like, oh, you got a Rubicon. You don't know how to drive that thing.
Right.
Or,
yeah,
like you bought it, but what are you going to do with it? There's some chip to that. Whether it's felt from them or not, I don't know. But I know from the non-Rubicon fan, especially when you're on the trail and the guy with the Rubicon is taking the weak line, not going over the obstacle. You're like, come on, buddy, you've got
a Rubicon.
You've got the disconnects. You've got the lockers. Put that baby in 4 low and go, right? And you're grinding it out in your unlocked, TJ or my Sport S, and making it. It's a little. I mean, it's satisfying as the non-Rubicon owner,
right? But it also has to be a little bit satisfying. You've built yours up to the sense that I think if people don't see the Rubicon on your hood, they assume it is. It looks tricked out. So people see what you're doing and must assume, oh, he's got the lockers on there. He's just flying over everything. And it's not necessarily that. It's like you say, you're picking the right line. You're taking it slow. You're in 4 low and just making the right decisions. And people don't appreciate that.
No, I don't think they do. And I did realize today that the 2 things that are most important when you're out on the trail are your tire selection and your line selection.
Right.
And you can manage everything else, lockers or no lockers, if you have good. Now I have, and I'll give a shout out because I like these Cooper.
The Coopers are great.
They're Cooper Evolution MTs. They're the mud tires. They've been dynamite for me. I've never had an issue where I felt like I didn't have enough traction. I air them down to about 12 PSI with my Method wheels. With the, they're not bead locks, but they have like a bead lock lip on the inside, so I can air them down. Never had a problem. But those 2 things, mostly tires and then line, will, if you pick right, you'll get over things. And we had a Sahara in the group with, all season tires.
Right.
And it just wasn't cutting the mustard.
Yeah. So, I mean, my TJ is a Sahara. It's all that. But, with the lift and the 33-inch tires.
And you have all-terrain tires.
They are all-terrains.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, I mean, like all season on a trail, no good.
Right.
All-terrain, better. Mud terrain, best.
Yeah, right. That's coming next time.
You got to put up with the noise. They're noisy.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, they're noisy, but, it's a Jeep. Jeep's noisy to begin with.
They are. They're chunky. They're noisy. They're hard riding.
All right. So we're gonna have an early start tomorrow. We're gonna be on a more difficult trail.
Yeah.
We're going to then, when we return after another round of Don Julio, we will pick up these microphones and we will summarize your experience. Hopefully your Jeep,
if I make it back,
is coming back drivable. Hopefully my Jeep is coming back drivable. We don't want to have to flatbed these things back to our respective hometowns. But I will say at this point, Tom, you did well.
I had a great day, and it was a lot of fun following your line.
Well, thank you for that. And we will pick this up on the next Talk is Jeep.
Awesome.